Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
Welcome to the Back of the Range. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is episode 103. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. I want to tell you all that during the winter months, you're going to get more than just one episode per week. This is the time of year where college golf is on a break, the National Amateur Circuit is relatively quiet, and despite the President's Cup and the early season professional tournaments, things are a little bit calmer. So it's a great time for me to connect with amateurs, professionals, college players, college coaches. We're going to bank some episodes and get them out there as quickly as possible. Your support and feedback is most appreciated, so please continue to leave reviews in Apple Podcast. If you have ideas or recommendations on someone that should be featured here at the Back of the Range, shoot me an email at ben@thebackoftherange.com. You know that we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All that information, every one of our previous episodes is available at thebackoftherange.com. We are bringing back Free Towel Tuesdays. Our logo towels have been popping up everywhere, and I like seeing that, so let's get some more of those towels out there. Every Tuesday on Instagram and Twitter, look for a post. You know the drill. Tag some friends. I don't need to go through this again. Just spread the word, and I'll hook you up with some free swag. So on to this week's guest, the All-American sophomore from the University of Georgia, Trent Phillips. Trent just came off his first collegiate victory at the Ka'anapali Classic in Hawaii to close out the fall season with the Bulldogs. It might be his first collegiate win, but Trent's resume is stacked, and he's just a sophomore in college. As a freshman, he was the SEC Freshman of the Year and named to the All-SEC First Team and Freshman All-SEC Team. He went undefeated in the 2017 Junior President's Cup. He's the youngest winner in the history of the Palmetto Amateur. Trent was invited to the Walker Cup practice session down here in South Florida in December of 2018. While he didn't make the final squad, rest assured the 2021 Walker Cup is definitely on his radar. I asked him about playing at Georgia with his older brother on the team, and of course, I had to ask why he wears two gloves when he plays golf. Trent also follows us on Instagram, along with many of the best collegiate players in the country like Cole Hammer, Quade Cummins, and Ricky Castillo. So very cool to finally get a chance to speak with Trent, and make sure you're paying attention to him and the other collegiate stars that stop by the Back of the Range. You're going to see all of them at the next level. So let's get started with episode 103. Trent, welcome to the Back of the Range. How are you?
Doing good. How you doing?
I'm good, man. We've been trying to do it for a while, but, I got a job and you got school and all these things get in the way. But it'd be great if, I didn't have to work and you didn't have to go to class. We could just play golf and talk golf all day. But we got it done. Coming off of a pretty impressive win just to wrap up the fall season. Tell me what the last week was like for you. You were at the Ka'anapali tournament in Hawaii. I know that the Sooners picked up the team win, but you picked up the individual win. Walk me through your last week.
Yeah, it was exciting. I picked up my first college win. I'd been knocking on the door for quite some time, especially last year. I played really well. I just never broke through, and I tried to just stay patient. I played well the first couple of events this fall, and I knew like my time was coming, and I just had to just stay patient and keep my head down and just keep moving forward. And I get out there and I posted a good round first round. I knew the scores were going to be low. The wind wasn't blowing as bad as it did last year in this event, so I knew the scores were going to be low, and I knew I had to go out there and post something low. But when you do that, it's kind of hard to go low when you tell yourself you have to go low. You know what I mean?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, exactly. So I just tried to kind of forget about that and just go play the golf course for what it is, and put up 65, 64, and I had myself a 2-shot lead going to the last day. And I'm sitting there telling myself, you don't really want to put a number up to like what you need to shoot to win, but I'm sitting there thinking, surely if I shoot 5 under today, like just a solid round, get the par 5, shoot 5 under, that'll be tough to beat with someone having to shoot 64. And we get out there and Quade comes out with 7 straight birdies, I believe.
That guy's a maniac. Yeah, this is Quade Cummins. He's a senior at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So this is like a par 71, like what, like 67, 6,800 yards?
Yeah, 6,800, something like that. Yeah, and he comes out blazing high. I think he's 800 par through 9 holes, and then I get wind of that, and I'm like, well, man, like
I gotta go
I'm
to work.
I'm playing well. I'm like 3 or 4 under, and I'm getting my butt kicked. Like I'm like, well, I better do something, you know. So I had 2 par 5s left, I believe, and I just knew with 6 holes left, I had to get those par 5s and pick up another birdie somewhere else. And the last hole I played was actually a par 5, and I didn't know where I stood. And I get up there, and I actually make bird. And I get done, and they're like, "Yeah, you tied Quade at 20." And I was like, "Cool, sweet." Like, I got my first college win because in college, like they normally do not play off. I don't
Yeah,
think.
you do the co-medalist thing, and you
do the co-medalist thing, and I get in, and then I don't know who it was. I think it might have been Hibble, OU's coach, said, "Yeah, you guys are going to play it off." I was like, "Well, dang, like here we go. Like here's another opportunity for me to have a chance to win." And we get out there, and it's a 7-hole playoff, which is a lot of holes for a playoff.
Okay, so let me just double check let me just reset a little bit. So you finish. So Oklahoma wins They win the team title. They actually had their lowest single day in program history. I think they shot like 21 under par as a team on the final day.
They went crazy.
And then, so now you're tied with Quade Cummins. Now, I'm assuming it's a sudden death playoff.
Yes, it is sudden death.
Okay, so you go 7-hole sudden death, and I know in the past you've had you had a 7-hole playoff for USAM qualifier, and you were on the wrong end of that. So you're on the right end of this when you get through. Now I know this may be a really overly simple question. I know there's probably a lot of factors involved, but you saw what he did in regulation. So how do you go into a sudden death playoff? Are you thinking to yourself, I got to go really fast and really hard to kind of win this soon, or are you saying let's just kind of play somewhat conservative, not hand it over? Like, do you think about that at all?
Honestly, I think, to me, I was thinking I have to make birdie. Birdie's going to win this playoff.
Right.
Somebody's going to make a birdie, and that's how it's going to be over. So we started on 18, which is it's probably the most difficult hole on the golf course. It was playing into the wind. We were hitting 7s and 8 irons in to a tucked right flag over water. So, I mean, it's a really good hole, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, the dude, I mean, he hasn't made a bogey in I don't know how many holes. So, like, I can't sit back and expect him to make a 5, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I got to be aggressive. So I hit a good shot, and it just comes a little long, and I happen to get up and down. So, and he misses a 20-footer for bird, and it just keeps on going. He was super clutch. He made a bunch of short putts to keep it going from anywhere from 5 to 10 feet.
Wow.
And yeah, it was crazy. It was one of the best playoffs I've ever been in. And then the final hole, I happened to hit a pitching wedge in there to about 10 feet, and I actually had this putt already because we'd already played this hole. So I knew the read, and I finally got it done and dropped it. So it was a good feeling.
Nice. What was the crowd like for the playoff? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming it's your team. It's Georgia and Oklahoma, but who else was around?
A bunch of the golf course staff and stuff. I think they all came out there, like the head guy over the tournament.
Nice.
And a bunch of photographers and stuff. So it was a pretty cool little deal. It was definitely one of my cooler playoffs that I've been in for sure.
Well, I had Quade on during the Road to Hoylake last or a few months ago, right before Walker Cup, and I reached out to him recently, congratulated him on the team win, and I said, boy, Oklahoma, they look pretty scary, but I got to ask you, speaking of scary, how bad is Quade Cummins' facial hair? Is it terribly magnificent, or is it just magnificently terrible? I mean, you own the title now. You could speak to it. Like, how bad is it?
I think it's sick. I love it.
Okay. All right.
It's fair. I think it's cool. I think so. It was funny that you asked that. I saw him down there in the playoff, and to kind of lighten the mood, I said, "Do you always trim it into a goatee on the final day or something like that?" And he was like, "Yeah," because I had noticed that he usually has a full beard when he gets to the tournament, and then at the end of the tournament, he's got this little goatee patch. And I'm just like, do you always do that? And he's like, yeah, it's just kind of my tradition.
Yeah.
So that's funny you asked that.
So he knows the cameras are going to be out on the final day, so he's got to clean it up for the. Okay, all right, this is perfect. We're getting a little more information on Quaid. I got to ask him about that stuff. So, well, that's awesome. Well, congrats on that. I know that was a nice finish to the fall season. How odd is it, by the way, in college golf where you almost have two separate seasons with 2 months kind of in between? I mean, how do you? You're obviously riding a nice big wave, and now you got to shut it down. So what do you do in the winter? I mean, obviously you got, we got the holidays and seeing family and you got classes and all that stuff. But like for golf, do you try and play as much as you can, or do you kind of force yourself to take a break? Like what do you try and do?
For me, this is kind of personalized to me. I'm not a huge fan of cold weather, so I'm not a cold weather golfer. I'm not a huge fan of just getting out there and going and playing in 45-degree weather. That's just not me.
Yeah.
It kind of takes a little bit of fun out of it for me. I mean, I love playing golf, but getting out there when it's 38 degrees, that's just, I don't find that I get any better doing that. So right. I pretty much just try to practice as much as I can. And, I tend to not play any tournaments for about a month or two. I kind of avoid that and just try to stay relaxed. And just realize that we got a big spring coming up where some important tournaments, and I just try to get my mind ready for that.
Well, that'll be a nice off season just to kind of reset and reboot. You mentioned cold weather. You mentioned not being a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it either, being a native South Floridian. So, yeah, anything above I've played some cold weather, but, I try and avoid it also. So let's backtrack just a hair. Inman, South Carolina, born and raised. So how does a guy that grows up in a town with a population of under 2,500 decide I want to go to the University of Georgia where the student population is 37,000?
Oh, that's a good question. So we grew up in this neighborhood called Woodfin Ridge, which is actually on a golf course. Just went to a standard, just public high school. And we had a bunch of kids who grew up playing baseball together. I forgot how little we were. We were really little, and we moved to this golf course. And I met some buddies that their dad was over there hitting balls, and my dad would go over and hit balls and stuff like that. And us kids, we were over there just kind of watching and kind of just hitting some little clubs. You know what it is, as a little kid. And we kind of just picked it up, and then the dad started putting down clubs and helping us. And then we kind of started playing a few holes each day. And then we would start playing these little 9-hole events. And then it finally turned into, we all started to play competitively. So the kids I'm talking about, there's a kid at Clemson, Jacob Bridgman, who actually grew up 3 minutes from me. And there's a kid who also grew up a minute from me who plays golf at South Carolina. So, and then you obviously my brother. So yeah. All of us grew up playing together 3 and 4 holes a day. It's this little loop that loops around my house. And it's kind of crazy that all 4 of us ended up getting D1 scholarships when we just started playing golf together. Like there wasn't other kids out there playing. It was just us, and we kind of started kind of like a little wave around my neighborhood and in Bowling Springs, Inman area of kids loving to play golf, So I think it's really cool that how it happened. And like you said, yeah, it's not a big town and it's not a big area. So for that to happen, it is pretty unique, I would say.
Yeah. And then also, and we'll get to this a little bit later, but you and Bridgman end up on the 2017 President's Cup together. Exactly. That's just 2 kids. So we're going to get to that. All right. So, but I can't let you off the hook. So how does Georgia fit into how does Georgia fit into this? When you grow up in South Carolina and, you've won the Palmetto, you've done, won all these tournaments in South Carolina Junior Golf Association, I'm guessing you had no shortage of opportunities of where to go to school and where to play collegiate golf. So you mentioned your brother, Trevor, who is a couple years in front of you at Georgia. So he was already there. But But I'm sure that, it wasn't just like, well, he's there, so I'm going there. You obviously had options and probably had other visits. What drew you to Georgia?
I grew up playing high school golf with my brother, and everything I did from when I was little, I'm always doing stuff with my brothers. So
right.
I'd always been around them, and I feel like, to me, and it's funny you say that. You think, well, that's probably not the reason he went there, but that is a big reason I did go here.
Okay.
Was actually because I wanted to play golf with my brother. Like I thought it would be weird if I would go to a different school, and I'm just comfortable around my brothers. Like we're really close, so yeah, I thought it would be strange for me to go somewhere else. And I really love the coaches, Coach Hack and Coach Doug, are really good guys, and to me, I just felt like I fit in well here, and it's not too far from home. I didn't want to go very far off and get too far away from home to where I couldn't come home when I wanted to. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So I just thought it was a good fit for me, and yeah, and I really liked it. So I just ended up here.
What was maybe one of the first like culture shock moments, or like, okay, I am not in a small town anymore, and now I kind of understand the magnitude and the size of this. Like, first week of class, or just
God, yeah. I'll never forget the first week of class. I'd actually played. I think it was USAM at Pebble. Was it 2 years ago? Yeah,
2018.
I played at Pebble, and I made it to the round of 32, I believe, and lost in extra holes. And I remember getting done and thinking, man, I was so nervous. Like my whole life, like change has made me a little bit nervous.
Okay,
like just big change like that. So I was so nervous to kind of get back because I had no clue where my classes were. Like I didn't know. Like this place is huge. Like you were hitting on.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? 35,000 kids.
37,000 student population.
37,000 students.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just overwhelmed. So I get back. I really had no clue where to go, and I go to class, and it was kind of a shocking moment to me because I went to a high school with 1,700 kids, and now I'm seeing 37,000.
Yeah.
That's just a lot. And yeah, it was very shell shocking to me.
How did you who helped you, and how did you kind of get your arms around it?
My brother. My brother helped me a lot because he'd been here for 2 years, and that was kind of one of the reasons I wanted to go to school with my brother. Because he's been through some things that definitely could help me along the way, and just help me. Kind of with some guidance on what I shouldn't do. So nice. I think he helped a lot.
So let's talk a little bit about your brother. Had an ACL injury, so he had a little bit of a rough go when he started Georgia. I know you guys won. I know you guys won state high school championships together. Now you're playing in the same college team, but I got to ask. This may not be one of the most nerve-wracking 2 rounds of golf you ever played, but I want to talk about that 2018. U.S. Amateur at Pebble Beach. So your brother qualifies at Jennings Mill, and that's like mid-July, like July 16, 17, gets through, and you're not at the same qualifier. You're at a qualifier the next week. So talk me through, like, okay, I'm so happy for my brother. He's going to Pebble Beach to the U.S. Amateur, and now I got to try and get a spot too. How do you approach a situation like that where, first of all, there's the USAM at Pebble Beach? That's that's in one category. That's enough. But now it's like, okay, I know my brother's going. I'm sure my dad or my other brother family is now going. I got to get a ticket somehow. How do you approach that nightmare situation and actually get through?
I kind of went into it. It's kind of funny. Me and my little brother just went down there and stayed by ourselves. I was 18 years old. It was kind of one of the first times I'd went and just stayed kind of like by myself, like just took off from the house, stayed by myself, did everything on my own, at a golf tournament. So me and my brother, I think we got an Airbnb with some buddies from back home who were also playing the same qualifier. And we just went out there and like you said, my brother, my parents would probably end up going. So I was just sitting there thinking, let's make this a family trip, go out to Pebble and have a good week.
Yeah.
That Pebble's sweet in itself. So I just went out there and I remember playing well. The course, it was a good golf course, but there was definitely, it was some quirk to it. Like it was a little bit quirky. So it was definitely a little more difficult than I thought it would be to qualify because there were some really good players there, if I remember correctly.
Well, Ogletree, who ends up winning the USAM this past year, he qualified that spot too.
Yeah, exactly. So there were some good players there, and I don't remember what I actually finished or placed. But that was definitely exciting to me when I qualified for that because I definitely wanted to be out there with my brother and my parents at Pebble.
No, that's that had to be a pretty cool experience, and it's funny you can't get away from William Mao because you go to play Junior Presidents Cup together, and then he beats you in 20 holes at Pebble. So I'm sure you'll be seeing him.
And I played him in the U.S. Junior right before I played him in U.S. Junior at Baltusrol before Pebble. So
okay.
I could. Me and William have played a lot of golf together.
You've seen enough of that guy for a while, haven't you?
Yeah.
All right, let's knock this question out. I'm dreading to ask this one, but I feel that in order for this to be a sanctioned episode for you, this has to be asked. You wear 2 golf gloves when you play, and I'm sure you've gotten this question many times in the past. So you're going to get it many times in the future. So let's try and have a little fun with this. What is the answer that is the truth of why and how you wear 2 gloves? And maybe can we think of a fun answer that you've used to throw people off just to have fun with it?
Oh, that'll be a tough one, but I can answer why I do wear them. So growing up, you don't really swing at a golf club that hard when you're little. You don't really, you're not thinking of it, your hand slipping. You're just starting to play golf, and for me, like I like to have full control of the golf club and feel like I can just grip the golf club and I don't have to worry about anything slipping. Like that's not an excuse. So for me, when I was at the 10-year-old World Championship, I think it was at Little River Golf Club or Country Club. I was on the second hole in a practice round, and I was playing with the golf drive grips that are really shiny and like spirally.
Yeah, like the glossy tour wrap.
The glossy tour wrap. I was playing with those, and I can't remember if I think I was wearing no gloves at all.
Wow.
And I'll never forget it. I'm on the second hole. It's a par 3 down the hill. And I hit this iron, and the iron flies out of my hands. It goes probably 20 or 30 yards. And I'm just like, I've had it. Because I had never thrown the club like that, like just flew out of my hands like that. But I'd also had some times where my hand slipped. And I'm like, like my hand slipped,
Right.
And this happens, and I'm like, never again will that happen. I kind of thought to myself, I'm going to wear 2 gloves.
And you're like 10 years old at the time?
I'm 10 years old. And from 10 years old on, 11 years old, I don't know when I actually switched, but I've never not worn 2 gloves in a golf round for about at least 8 or 9 years.
So when you're starting this and you're going to the local golf shop with mom and dad to buy gloves, or you're at the pro shop, I mean, somebody has got to see, like, kid, listen, this isn't Little League baseball. What's with the batting gloves? What are you doing? I mean, someone's got to be like, kid, what are you doing?
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of questions about it. Like, do you really need that? And growing up, obviously you're not getting some stuff from equipment companies and club companies and stuff like that. So it's like, I mean, this stuff isn't cheap.
Of course, yeah, right. Like mom and dad are like, Trent, listen, your brother doesn't do this.
Yeah, you don't have to slow. Yeah, you don't have to slow down the golf clubs.
Yeah.
So honestly, I can't remember how long we might have bought golf gloves. And I really don't see that many people doing it. But it's funny that you say that. I had the kids that we grew up with. I was actually the kid at Carolina. I think he might play with 2 gloves, which I don't know if he got it from me or just tried it and liked it. But I've seen more and more kids start doing it than you'd actually believe. It's very rare, but I've actually seen some occasions where, like, wow, he's got on 2 gloves because I have an eye for it, because I wear 2 gloves.
Probably a unrealized benefit of this is you can put on rain gloves and have it not feel different.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's one thing that I like, because going from 1 glove to 2 rain gloves, that's a weird feel to put on a glove. Put on 2 gloves if you don't ever wear 2 gloves. That's really weird. So, for me, when it's raining, the glove thing is not an issue for me. So that's one of the perks to it, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm starting a wave or not or what. But
I mean, this is just a new. It's a new. It could be a new thing. So, I mean, Tiger with the mock neck shirts and Ricky wearing orange, and someday kids are going to be wearing 2 gloves, just like Trent Phillips. I mean,
yeah.
these things are going to happen. All right, let's talk about a couple things, and then I'm sure there is tons and tons of schoolwork that you're dying to get to. You don't want to talk golf all day. Junior President's Cup, huge. This is the inaugural year that there was the up in New Jersey, and a lot of these guys, like you said, your neighbor, Bridgman's on the team, and Cole Hammer and Barber and Godwin and Akshay's on the team, all these juniors. So you get the call for this. What were your thoughts going into it, and maybe what was one of the takeaways you had from it, representing the U.S. for the first time?
Going into it, you know how the AJGA ranking system,
Sure.
like they rank all the players, and I think I was pretty easily set on the team. I can't remember correctly, but I don't think I was like one of the bubble guys where you don't know if you're going to make it or not, or you got to play a certain way to get in. So I was super excited when I first found out that they were having it. I couldn't wait to do it, because it's in New Jersey, up near the Statue of Liberty, going to the actual President's Cup. When I heard all that, like, it was super exciting, and we had a strong team, so I couldn't wait to get up there and do it. And that was my first time and his first experience playing for USA, and it really was like a different feel than anything that you'd ever do. It's different playing for your country and representing your country. And it was one of the more fun weeks I've had on the golf course.
Now, the interesting thing is you have your kind of the honorary captain of Jack Nicklaus, and then the captain David Toms.
Mm-hmm.
Those names. I mean, I'm twice your age, so I know a little bit more about guys playing in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and things like that. Were there any guys on your team that maybe didn't know some of the President's Cup players or the captains or some of the dignitaries? I'm just curious how tied in the juniors on this team were to some of the older, dignitaries that were around.
Growing up playing golf, you kind of see stuff here and there about things that happened in the past. And so I'm pretty sure everybody knew, all the people that were up there. I mean, even from the international side, like most people that play golf are pretty knowledgeable about golf. And
sure.
So I'm pretty sure everybody knew about it. And, you mentioned David Toms. David Toms is such a cool dude. I love being around him. I looked up to him all week, and he was really nice. And I don't think we could have had a better captain, to be honest with you. He was really cool. So, if that ever comes around again and David Toms is the captain, you're definitely going to want to make the team, because he's a pretty cool dude.
Okay, so let me have you elaborate on that a little bit, because I think most people, when they think of David Toms, they may think, okay, solid PGA Tour player, won the PGA Championship, and played on some teams, but maybe doesn't jump out when you think of like, okay, that guy's in line for a Ryder Cup or a President's Cup captaincy. What were maybe some of the things he did? Because a lot of you guys are super young. A lot of you guys, it's your first time doing anything like this. What did he do to help you guys succeed?
Yeah, he was just very comforting. Like when you're out there and he's around, you just felt comfortable, and very encouraging. And he'd also like to get fired up too. So that was
to
me, that was cool, because you know how David Toms, he's very relaxed, very calm. You see his golf swing very slow. He's a very calm guy, I would say. And he was getting fired up out there. So I just think it was really cool to see that, and to be around him was special.
So that was your experience representing the United States, and I know you're at the Walker Cup practice sessions in December of 2018 down here in South Florida. Weren't a part of the final roster, but I can't imagine a better environment for you to gauge where you are in the amateur ranks, the collegiate ranks. I mean, it's an honor to be invited to the practice sessions, but when you're there with Wolf, you're there with Hammer, you're there with like Parziali and Hagestead and all these guys. How comfortable was that experience being in that session? And I know you're angling to try and make the team in 2021. What was your takeaway? Maybe not just from the practice sessions, but also your summer leading up to trying to make the team. Like, what are you going to bring with you moving forward to try and make the team in 2021?
Yeah, so with the Walker Cup, I'm pretty sure like the USAM and stuff is and those big amateur tournaments in the summer are some big things that they look at, how you play. So leading up to that Walker Cup practice session that I went to, I really didn't think anything of Walker Cup. Like I had no thoughts of Walker Cup. I had an okay summer. I just lost round of 32, or I lost round of 16 to Hammer and extra holes at the U.S. Junior. I lost round of 32 extra holes at the U.S. Amateur, and so I really had no thoughts of it, And I went out and I had a fall season where I shot 10 straight rounds in the 60s. I don't think I finished outside the top 5, maybe, or the top 4 or 3, like maybe once. I finished 11th for my first fall showing, and all of a sudden I get this call that I'm invited to the Walker Cup practice session, and I was just like, wow, like that's cool, like okay.
Yeah, go play some golf in South Florida this winter. And
I'm not gonna complain about that. So we went down there, and it was a really fun experience. There was a lot of good guys out there. Matt Wolf's now a PGA Tour winner, and what was it? Not even a year ago, we were playing at the Walker Cup practice session together. So, I don't know. It was very eye opening, and like you said, it was a good gauge to see where you're at in comparison to all these great amateur players out there. So, it was very fun.
Did you feel like, okay, I got work to do, or now I'm right here with these guys? It just depends who's going to have the better spring and summer leading in. I mean, when you walked away from it, we were like, man, that guy is he's at a different level. Or was it like, nah, I'm right there?
Yeah, I didn't really see it like that. I played with a lot of good players in my days, and when you're out there, you're really just having a good time and hanging out and just getting used to each other. You know what I mean? Because most of the time, a lot of those players end up on the actual team.
Sure.
So it was really fun, and it really wasn't like that. I think everybody was out there having a good time, just playing like alternate shot, best ball, and stuff like that. For the most part, everybody that I played with, I was very impressed with. And I mean, if you're at the Walker Cup practice session, you're obviously a pretty good player.
Yeah.
So
that's why.
Everybody's very good. It was definitely a neat experience.
Let me ask you a couple of questions about Georgia, and then we're going to get you out of here. A lot of history at the University of Georgia. You got, Swafford and Brian Harmon and Lee McCoy and, Bubba Watson, all these different PGA Tour pros that were at Georgia. And then you got a South Carolina guy like Kevin Kisner. I know you see the names on the wall, but do you get the connection with any of these guys that come back to school?
Yeah. So right now, not a whole lot of guys come back. So you have Chris Kirk, who hangs around a good bit and practices with us, and B. Todd, who actually just won the golf tournament. He won the same day I won, which is really neat. Yeah, that was really cool. And every once in a while, most of the time I'm practicing with either B. Todd or Kirk, or they're out there on the range doing their thing, and we'll go play 9 or 18. So yeah, when they're here, when most of the people come back, like we kind of get together and go play and stuff like that, which is really cool. And it's a good gauge to see, because if you have guys with their PGA Tour cards and you're out there hanging with them, then that kind of gives you a boost of confidence,
I would imagine just hanging out with them and just hitting balls and playing 9 holes really quick. I'm guessing that kind of narrows the gap a little bit to where sometime in the future, if you decide to turn professional, you're not going to be looking at that as something that's unattainable, because you do that all the time with your buddies.
Exactly, and it's I think it's good to hang around players like that, or guys that have status and stuff like that, because when you do get to that position, you've already been there and you've already played with guys like that, so you really shouldn't be any more nervous than you would be anytime. Yeah. It's just golf. At the end of the day, it's just golf. You're teeing a ball up. It really shouldn't matter who you're playing with. And I think that, like you said, it definitely narrows the gap, and it definitely is going to help you out in the long run.
When you see PGA Tour players on TV, they're wearing their work uniform with their golf shirt with all the sponsor logos, and they're wearing long pants, and they're at their job. And, of course, they have to do their outings and they have to do the different things as far as being a professional. One of the things that the golfing public doesn't see is actually the practice and the work that they put in. None of that is ever televised. And
Yep.
sure, that they'll talk about being in the gym and they'll do things like that. But what are maybe some of the things you've seen from Brendan Todd or Chris Kirk or any other PGA Tour players with their practice routines, or what a typical day in the off season or an off day looks like for them that maybe has filtered into your approach to getting your game ready and getting yourself in the best position to succeed on the college level and then perhaps someday on the professional level?
Yeah, good question. One of the things I've picked up on is when guys like that come out and practice, they're very structured with their practice. They don't do things that they aren't set out to do that day. Most of the time they don't go have a little chipping game, or putting contest. They have what they're going to do that day and they go do it. They don't dilly dally around. So yeah, it's very structured. I think I could use a little more of that, in college. Like, you kind of stressed out with school and stuff.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's fun to get out there and just kind of go goof off and just have a life, because it's at this point right now, it's not a job for me. I have school, I have golf, I'm really just trying to have fun with it. So for them, I understand it. It's their job. They got to get out there and they got to get back to their families and stuff like that. So they don't really have time to do that kind of stuff, which one day it'll probably be the same for me, hopefully. So I'm definitely learning now of how I should probably do things.
Final question, we'll get you out of here. You're at the University of Georgia. You just mentioned you're going to school, you're having fun, you're having a life, and just doing college guy stuff. If you weren't a student athlete, if you were just a student at the University of Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
how would you spend your time? Where would you go? What would you do? What do you wish you had more time for? I mean, obviously, you're doing exactly what you want to do. You're playing collegiate golf at the University of Georgia, but if you had all the time in the world just to go to classes and be just a regular college student, what would you think you'd be doing?
Well, I'd probably dedicate a little more time to my schoolwork. Growing up in high school, I love making good grades, and I still do, but I just don't have as much time to do that,
Yeah.
And I would try to do as good as I can in school, and I would probably try to just make more and more friends. I don't have time to do all that. You have guys in fraternities who are normal students who they have a bunch of friends and a bunch of guys they can hang out with at all times. Like, don't get me wrong, I have a bunch of friends, but
right.
I'm not living the full college experience of where 100 and some different guys that can hang out at any given time. You know what I mean? Like, I have stuff that I have to do, and with golf and everything and traveling, you're not here all the time. You don't get to experience these football games as much that are home and stuff like that. So, there's some few things, but I kind of like where I'm at.
Oh yeah, no, you're doing just fine. You're doing just fine. Probably going to edit this one out, but how old is Spencer Ralston? Is he like 21, or is he like a 35-year-old that looks 21?
He's 21.
You're sure about that? You don't think you don't think he's just like some mid-am that got his way back in and just figured out?
He definitely does look like a mid-am. I can't lie. That's funny.
Right.
That is a good one.
Well, Trent, this is a lot of fun. Glad we got the time to do this. Enjoy the off season. I know you got a lot of things that you're looking to do this spring and beyond. So we'll definitely be following you, and enjoy the holidays. And thanks for stopping by the back of the range.
Yes, sir. I enjoyed it.
And there you have it. Special thanks to Trent Phillips for joining us here this week at the back of the range. Best of luck to him and the Georgia Bulldogs in the spring. Don't forget, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All of our previous episodes are available at thebackoftherange.com. First person to shoot me an email at ben@thebackoftherange.com gets a free towel. We'll see you again next week for another episode here at the Back of the Range.